in, and Mr. Smith, if you could do the invocation.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to pray. Father, thank you for all you do for us, for the day it's been given to live and enjoy. We pray, Lord, now that you would be with the board and these departments that are going to present this evening. May, when it's all said and done, be a good budget for Grayson County and its citizens. So in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there are no changes to the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion and second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. You ready, Mr. Ford?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
General operation budget.
Yep. I'll do a scene setter and then kind of turn it over to Nikki. So in your packet, you should have a few things. Obviously, you have the agenda. We printed out. I had Linda print out the fund, function, activity, and element document. What we're going to talk about where we're at in general fund, judicial fund, public safety, and there's a bunch of line items in each one of those. So you can reference that as she's putting slides up. Make sense? Next, Mr. Wilmore sent an email out this morning and just talking about the Independence Elementary request. So that email's in there. Nikki also produced 3 offices that are 3 folks that are going to be here today. The school, EMS, and Sheriff's Office. And she produced a chart that's in your packet. It's an actual and budget for 25 and 26, the percentage changes. So that's in your packet. From my perspective, the goal today is to try to give the board a kind of 30,000 foot view of where we're at. It's going to be brief from us. I would say it'd be brief from us, and we're just going to wait tops. The focus areas today are, as you requested. At this point, we have a large deficit in our budget, and we'll walk you through what that looks like and some of the issues I think we're facing. We've met with almost all the constitutional officers and directors except for 2 or 3 at this point. Some of those we went over with a fine-tooth comb. Some of those we have not yet. So I would say it's a little bit, I'd say in certain offices we debated $100 expenditures, and others we've not hit them as hard yet. So, and as a reminder, this budget is really fluid at this point. It's our first kind of intro at it, and based on direction from the board, and as you provide inputs, things will change for us, and that's how we make our changes. One of the unknowns for us really is the federal and state dollars. We don't have all of those inputs yet, so federal dollars can affect BSS, state dollars can affect all of us, and so those are some of our unknowns at this point. I think that's it. Anything else I need to hit?
I don't think so.
I'll turn it over to Nikki to get this party started.
Okay. We are reviewing the general fund operational budget for fiscal year 26. I kind of wanted to do a little recap of the prior year because last year ARPA was used to fund all of our capital projects, and that funding has been extended. So it is gone. The Louisville Lane project, which also was included in ARPA, is complete and operational. And the broadband project is still underway, and we will go over that budget at the next budget meeting.
Yep, wireless, just as my wireless meeting, next budget meeting, which is on Thursday. So wireless meeting.
Next board meeting.
Next board meeting.
Yes, board meeting.
Okay.
Thursday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, in terms of goals and priorities, we really need to look at the tax rate for sufficiency on whether or not it's funding our expenditures the way we need it to. The priorities in Grayson County are obviously emergency medical services in Grayson County, broadband and 911 stabilization, and planning for the future. So our notable increases this year. The state opted for a 1.5% bonus, which roughly cost us about $187,000. They also did a 3% cost of living, which is another $260,000. I can send this presentation to you all after if you'd like. Okay. Our workers' comp actually even increased. I hadn't seen that in a long time. That's why it's on the slide. It's not nearly as impactful at 18,000, but just one I hadn't seen going up there. Oops. Hold on. All right, we got health insurance costs went up by 130,000. And then we're gonna talk about the schools and the notable increases there. Required local effort for us went up by 327,000 this year. Above our LE request was 384,000 from the school. And the CIP commitment of $1.98 million. That was $660 a year. And that's my research was done. That's what it was supposed to be when the program was approved. That leads us to a total of $3.2 million in just these increases alone. Right now, our general fund is sitting at a deficit of $3.5 million. So it's a little bit higher than this.
Say that again. Our
Our
general,
general fund operational budget is at a $3.5 million deficit, which includes these things and some increases in other places.
Okay.
So we got some work to do. And that's with the assumption that the 1.98 gets funded all of this year. You know, we have to appropriate those funds in order to spend them. So if the request is we spend it all in this year, or if it's a project that's gonna span out over 2 or 3 years, we don't know that yet necessarily, but we may know it after the meeting. Any other questions before I move on? No? Okay. There's a little bit of a delay too when I hit that. Okay. So I wanted to just review the summary of the revenue for the last, from 2023 to 2026. Most of my comparisons are gonna be for that length of time, as you saw with the departments. So in fiscal year 2023, our actual revenue was $27 million. It went up a little bit in 2024 due to the bond issuance that we did for the broadband project. It is recorded in the general fund, so it was 30.9 million in 24. 25, for the budget right now, you know, we're not up to the end of the fiscal year yet. We're just through April, and we got a lot of personal property taxes to collect for the remainder of the year. But the budget that we budgeted was about 29 million. And our 26 budget is also at about 29 million. So the percentage change in our revenue since 2023 has been almost 7%. While our average inflation over the last 4 years is approximately 24%. And anyone could argue, oh, it's not 24, it's more like 35, depending on your spending and what you're doing. It could be smaller, it could be larger, but I just looked at an average that's reported, and I came up with 24%. So while our revenue is climbing at 7%, our expenditures are climbing faster.
Tried to dig into the revenue a little bit the last couple of days, just to understand where the revenue increases are coming from. A little bit of residential revenue, a little bit of personal property tax revenue, but there's not huge chunks of revenue.
And as I presented in the last budget presentation, most of it is in intergovernmental revenue. So whether that be state, local, or federal. And again, we're a little unsure about how much revenue we will lose from some of the cuts that are going on the federal side. We're working on that. All right, this is basically your revenue categories that Steve talked about that has the detail in front of you in case you're wondering what expenditures make up general government. But these are basically expense categories, and I've compared our estimate for 25 to what our estimate for 26 is. So the first category, general government, I'm just gonna cover the differences, not necessarily the total expenditures. The difference in general government, it went up by about 85,000. Judicial has gone up by about 71. Public safety, 71,000. Public safety has gone up 506. Now, public safety includes law enforcement, emergency services, and a few others. And just to remind you, we've gone from the $250,000 ambulance to the $450,000 fire truck in emergency services, and that's a good portion of the difference. Health and welfare has gone up by 243,000. Education has gone up by 2.1, but again, that includes the 1.98 in CIP funding, okay? That does not include the debt service, which is at the bottom of the slide. So 1.9 of that is the CIP commitment that the board has previously made. Parks and Rec is going up by about 84,000. Parks, Rec, and Culture includes Parks and Rec and also the library. That's the other number that's making up that total. Community development has gone down a little bit, which is great to see, and we budgeted less in our capital projects as well, just because we filled a lot of them last year with ARPA, and we really don't have much. We're working with a $3.5 million deficit. So instead of 500,000, we budgeted for 250. Debt service has gone up by 102, and that is attributable to your bond issuance. We had interest-only payment this year. Next year, it's both principal and interest. So our total expenditures have gone up by 3.1. And again, if you refer back to that page with the notable increases, it's basically a summary of those. Any questions before I move on?
What all was in health and welfare?
Social services,
Sure.
health department, CSB. There's one I'm missing,
Rogers,
CSB.
CSP, yep.
And the capital projects, the 250,000 that you put in for, can you name what those capital projects are?
Well, we have a list of about 2.1 or something like that, but we put in a very low number, and for us, we try not to spend that unless we had to, but right now, we put in the budget as a placeholder. A lot of times what happens is something bad happens and we have to fix an issue, so we put that in the budget for this year. But we have a list of public works equipment, park and rec equipment, stuff that needs to be done.
Most all departments though push out their CIP requests to 2027 instead of 2026 based on the ARPA funding being done. So it's not a specific project, but it is in the event we have something that comes up.
So under general government, what were some of the increases on that?
All right, well, your general government category is basically county admin, auditing, financial consulting, legal services, commissioner of revenue, treasurer, information technology. Most of that, I believe, is in the cost associated with the 1.5% bonus and the 3% salary increase. That's been approved at the state.
And for the parks and rec, what's affected that?
Library request went up by 10,000.
It's 410.
It's 410 instead of 400. And again, there's salary increases And the bonus,
and
the
the
health insurance increase, the workers' comp increase.
expectation for our part-time workers to go. I think that number raise goes from 12 something to 13 something this year as well.
To the minimum.
Minimum wage, yeah, minimum wage. Can't remember exactly what the number is.
Quiet audience here. All right, and this is the slide that I put together for the emergency services, school, the sheriff's office, just because those are the departments you chose to have come and present. And again, comparison of actual and budget for 24, 25, and 26, so from 23 to 26. I put the percentage change in all those departments since 2023. And so Grayson County Emergency Services has increased by almost 75%. Schools, but again, I'm gonna remind you that has the $1.9 million in the CIP. So, without that, it would be significantly less than 20%. The sheriff's office has gone up 7% in that time frame. Okay, so basically, for the future, what we are needing now is some direction about how to balance increasing inflationary costs. Are we going to be looking at raising revenue and raising the levy this year? I believe 3 years was the last levy increase, I believe.
It's like the last, this is 21. You had one at 16, and then 21 you went, that would have been your assessment. Is that right? Your assessment at 21?
Not paid one, like, tax like one, right?
It's like it's effective at 21.
A lot of the departments put in level funding in terms of their budget requests, but I mean, we can look at decreasing spending and tightening down a little bit more. And also, it has been discussed about decreasing staffing numbers. So that's what we'll be kind of looking for in the future. Our next budget meeting is 4/17. We're gonna be talking about PSA and special projects. Does anyone have any questions? I wish it was positive. You hear a pin drop in here.
We want, how do you guys want to do this? You want to hear all the departments before we get into trying to answer those 3 questions? So they can say that.
I don't know that you have to answer those questions today.
Don't have to answer
Yeah,
today.
but if you want to have a discussion, you certainly can. I would recommend, since we got the departments here, let them hear from them, and then.
Let's just move on down the agenda, and after it's over with, the budget work session work just like the board meeting, we can't talk about it if it's not on the agenda. Like, when we hear the 3 departments, can we then bring it back up to talk about it? Sure. Okay. All right, well, let's move to Emergency Services Coordinator, Mr. Paul Hoyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to present our budget for this year. For the 26 budget, we have worked very hard to be as flat as we possibly can. We do have 3 projects that we are requesting funding for. So our budget came in at approximately $2.1 million. Of that 2.1, 1.2 million of it is direct pass-through to our volunteer agencies.
Do you have any handouts?
I do not. I can provide one.
It'd be nice to have one at some point.
Okay.
1.2 what?
1.2 is funding is passed directly through to the agencies. It's either in grant funding or in direct purchases for consumables, for insurance, basically all of the funds that we expend that are supporting the agencies. In addition to that, we've got $460,000 in contracted emergency services. So that's primarily the Hoyle-Grayson contract as well as the Alex Fire Department contract. We have about $64,000 in other contracted services, operational medical directors. One of those, the largest one is the contract for maintenance and servicing on cardiac monitors, all of the high dollar EMS equipment. And that is countywide contract, so that provides support and service for all of those items. And then we've also got in the budget a request for $279,000 in grant projects, and I'll discuss those again further here in just a moment. Of that $279,000, somewhere between $38,000 and $50,000 of it will be non-recoverable. The rest of it will be recoverable via grant. So the first, the most important item that we're requesting from the board, in addition to the maintenance of the last year's budget, is we'd like to add an additional EMS position, the same as the 3 that we have now, which would allow us to go to coverage 7 days a week. It would allow us to cover 160 hours per week, which would still leave an 8-hour gap. We've got the plans for how to minimize the impact on the community with that 8 hours gap. Right now, approximately a quarter of the calls that the emergency services coordinator, emergency services is dispatched on for EMS calls, we're not able to make because there's nobody on the schedule for it. So this would allow us to pick up almost all of that, so that we would not have a lack of ALS support when it's requested or needed in the community.
What was that number?
That's 23.8% is what the current deficit is. We essentially don't have any deficit on the response by 161 unless they get dispatched on 2 calls during the same period, which is very rare. So right now, if they're on the schedule, they make the call. It is worth noting too that since we initiated ALS support for the county, the volume for that has increased to about 800 calls per year. It's actually emergency services is now the 2nd highest volume response in the county.
Is that responses or dispatches?
That's dispatches. It's a good point. We won't actually meet all those numbers until we have enough people to make that. So yeah, we're actually answering about 630, 640 calls per year right now. Sorry, I got off track there. The increase that we're requesting for that, another position to equal the 3 positions that we already have and continue that schedule out, be approximately $64,000 per year. Is that correct, Nancy?
I'm sorry.
$64,000 for ALS position is what we discussed.
Yes,
All
which
right.
includes fringes.
Yes. The other thing that I'm requesting, and I understand this is probably a difficult year for this, but right now I'm managing the emergency services department and coordinating activities, logistics, administrative overhead for 9 agencies, not 10, count ourselves. Also managing PSA and emergency management. And so administrative overhead is gotten to the point where I'm functionally not able to get all the work done that I need to get done. I'm spending over 8 hours per week just doing invoicing, just paying bills essentially, which means that's programmatic work that's not getting done, management, emergency management, emergency operations plans, all of those things are being set aside to just keep the ball in the air. So I am requesting an additional administrative position that would support all 3 of those organizations, providing office support, administrative support, processing and scheduling, invoice, receiving, call, triage, basically everything that an office manager position is what I'm looking for. Currently, I've got 49 time critical or deadline critical projects that are open. I've got an additional 91 projects that are not deadline limited, but obviously that's more than we can accomplish right now. In addition of an administrative position, able to deal with this would be an ask of $45,000, and that's again, salary plus benefits. And then the third project is 3 grant projects that we're trying to accomplish this year. The first of these, we are in a condition right now with the self-contained breathing apparatus that we use for firefighting activities on the part of all our agencies are aging out. These come in at about $10,000 a piece. So we are proposing to initiate a phased replacement program for those, buying them under grant through the Assistance to Firefighters grant. We want to buy 5 per year, starting this year and continuing, which after 5 years would basically have us in a new operational cycle for SCBA's, so all of them are within service life. The match for that is $8,000 of the $50,000. So we would be liable for the $8,000, and we're certainly willing to dispose of that grant if we cannot get it at that rate, at that match rate. The second one, during Tropical Storm Helene, we figured out the hard way that the generators that are servicing our volunteer fire departments and rescue squads have aged out and are not reliable. So we had at least 5 failures of generators. All those generators that are out there right now were purchased with a Y2K grant. So literally starting in 1999. So they're all 25 years or older, and they're just failing, and they're failing at, when we need them the most. So we are not requesting to replace all of them at once, but we would like to acquire a grant to purchase 5 this year and then continue that process until all of them have been replaced.
What size generators are you looking at?
These will be,
Whole home generators or whole?
they'll be similar to the whole home generator, probably slightly larger in kW capacity. Because a lot of these are community centers too during major events like they were for Helene, and we wanted to make sure that we have the ability, even in the winter, to continue providing heating and all the other electrical needs. We're also looking, as they do work on their stations and do upgrades, we're shifting all cooking and heating from electrical to gas because we can support that easier. It takes less load on the generator, but that's going to be a longer term process. But we do have 3 agencies right now that are doing that on their own dime. So those generators are going to come in at approximately $40,000 a piece. The match for that at a 15% rate with the Assistance to Firefighters will be $30,000, which would be non-recoverable match. And again, if the AFG changes this year, which may happen due to everything that's going on the federal side, then we would just look at adjusting that grant, the number of generators based on what the changes are. And then the last thing, the Office of EMS has gone through a pretty rigorous process themselves over the last few years with loss of budget. They had a pretty significant problem that they're still trying to correct. One of the corrections they have is they've quit funding some of the things that they've been paying for several years for organizations throughout the state. One of these is the EMS reporting software that's required by the state to report EMS calls. It's also used for billing by the agencies to recover. We are requesting that the board approve a grant project for that, to have the county pick up a countywide contract for that. It's going to be in the ballpark of $24,000. And we are requesting the grant for this under the Rescue Squad Assistance Fund at 100% level, which means that we would get all of that $24,000 back. But I would probably suggest that we're probably going to get it under 50-50 instead of 100%, which means we'd be liable for $12,000 of it. Aside from that, the only changes I've got in my budget from last year are the changes that Nikki mentioned with respect to the contract services with Wilmore-Grayson EMS. We also had a contract request, an increase by Galax Fire Department. They've requested to increase their contract rate from $27,000 we paid them last year. They requested $36,336 and some change. I did an analysis of the call volume. They basically, since 24, The call volume is increased by 11% from Galex Fire. And if we increase their contract this year to 30,000 instead of 36,000, that would reflect a 12% increase, which I think is more defensible. Hoyle-Grayson EMS, I don't have the visibility on that one other than the raw numbers. I can tell you that in 2024, Hoyle-Grayson EMS ran 748 calls in the county. And that was for a compensation of $183,400. 2024, they only ran 646 calls, but their funding allocation or their funding request has gone up to $423,575. So we've actually got a 130% increase in funding request with a 14% decrease in volume. And that one, we're looking at options there, I guess is the best way to put it. Everything else in the budget is either flat, reduced, or in some very small cases, fuel, for instance, we were low, so we had to increase the fuel budget a little bit this year. Same thing with the vehicle maintenance. I'll blame the deer population on a good chunk of that. Other than that, I don't have any specifics. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
No, I'd really like to see a handout.
I'll get this to you today.
You said you was want to add a position, because of percentage of the calls when there's no one scheduled.
Yes, sir.
Could you rectify that by changing your schedules? Are you seeing a pattern of when those calls? Because your employees are on set schedule. Right?
They are on a pretty set schedule. There's some variation in it, but for the most part it's set. But no, we would not, I mean, by shifting hours from where they're working now, we would not actually increase. They're working days right now, which is the highest volume. If we shifted the schedule from where we're at right now, we'd actually shift them more into night scheduling. The problem is that right now they're working 20-hour shifts, which is already kind of outside the best practice. Until we can get the bunkering facility for them, we can't extend beyond that. So essentially, in an ideal world, I'd like to work them on 24/48s, but that would still leave full days that are not covered. The addition of this position, we would be basically working every hour of the week except the 8 hours pretty much surrounding church on Sunday. So starting about 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, running through church hours, and then after church, volume picks up again. So we would have 161 coming back on then. That is
If you had a
the current
home
plan.
room, would that help?
That would help, but we still, you cannot consistently schedule 24/7 with only 3 employees. It's just outside the window. So 4 employees would give us the opportunity to hit most of that. It would give us a better ability to keep a full schedule in spite of training, sick leave, vacation, and everything else. But when you take into all of the potential time off right now, there's no way, even with 24/7 operations, we could do that. Even moving to a 52-hour schedule. Now that we've got the approval of the board, we've got the authorization to apply for the FDID number for making this a full service or a multi-role agency. We will be able to extend the hours, but there's also going to be an adjustment there will have to be an adjustment in salary based on that too, because they're going to go from a 40-hour week to a 52-hour week. So,
Well, I realize you got wearing several different hats. You got pretty full plate. Are you running calls as well?
no, they're not. I'm not keeping my butt in the office. So, I'm exempt, so I don't turn in time sheet with all my hours, but my hours work, my daily work logs generally reflect somewhere between 46 and 56 hours a week. So I usually do a couple hours on Saturday, sometimes a couple hours on Sunday. And I work 10-hour days generally here. It's just, there's only so many things you can get done in a given period.
Paul, I know we've talked a lot about the 24/48 and all that, and the bunker room being a problem. Have you got any ideas on that?
Yes, sir. I approached, so the easiest solution for that, from my perspective, not to say that it's easier for everybody else, but Independence Fire Department has bunch room space that I had requested to see if we could lease from them. And they proposed, I think, your board had there some reason for not approving that. And so that's where that's at right now. I don't know if that's open for discussion again. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus here, Gary. But that's it. The independent rescue squad doesn't have the space. They just don't have the capability to do it. And we don't have any other space. The other options are we could find a space, a small space, lease it out, and create a bunk room. But I was looking for a lower cost alternative than that. The other thing is the reason I was hoping to be able to work with the fire department on it is it would be, especially in the winter, it would be advantageous to be able to back 161, the vehicle, into a bay so it's protected from the weather, which is supposed to be under state guidelines. We're kind of taking advantage of the rescue squad right now, backing in there most of the time, especially during inclement weather and in the winter when it's cold.
Yeah, I mean, there's coming a time that we're continuing going to expand emergency services, obviously, in the county, so, I mean, I guess just keep our eyes open for just opportunities.
Or if anybody sees anything, throw me a text or an email. I'm happy to follow up on anything you see.
Why don't we put a carport down here on the side street?
My experience with carports on the street is if you start in one, you're gonna be in it 20 years from now.
Anything?
Just so they can be clear. If you give a sheet so they understand that breakdown of each of these, and the grant particularly.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. I know I've seen it, but they haven't seen it, so.
I've got it. I just couldn't forward it to you.
If you just send it to me. I'll do it. Yes, sir. Out of 2.1, 1.2 is direct to the volunteer agencies.
Yes, sir.
Another 520 is contracts and other, different contracts. So that,
Yes, sir.
right?
So the big
So
contract.
right about 1718 is outside the scope of.
Yeah.
Right, I just wanna make sure. The other thing I'll tell the board is this, from a risk-based perspective, in my mind, this is our biggest risk. You could argue that public works is because of the accident that took place, but from a risk-based perspective, this we have 3 volunteers left on the western end of the county. One of them 72, one of them's, I don't know how old. They are really challenged taking calls. They came to us earlier this year and wanted to hand us the keys already. With the money that we got from Wellspring, we gave them $28,000, and they're continuing on at this point. I think maybe it's out there. So there's got to be we've got to really plan for the future of
The 4 providers, if we get the additional position, would also they would give us the flexibility if we did lose an agency, we could stand up port and starboard operations 24/7 at that agency until we can figure out a plan B, or whether that's the contracting or emergency hires or whatever. It provides us some insurance, if you will, for that worst case scenario.
Just one more comment. I know Mr. Ivy's probably familiar because he's on the Galaxy board. Mr. Smith is. It's under contract services, but we are owners in that agency. We have an agreement that was signed by chairman of the board at the time and the mayor, city council. So it's just, I mean, I think we're in that. They cover a portion of our county, but it's a legal binding document, to my understanding, and in my opinion. So the increase, largely, I think the increase has been in the city of Galax and transports from the hospital and the call volume, and it's not been in Grayson County, but we fund about 49% of that agency because the way it was drawn up whenever that happened, way before us, whatever year that was, Grayson County didn't get so good a deal in that, but we paid the bill, so that's where we're at.
What's the life of that contract? When is it revised?
I don't know if it's a contract. We're a part.
Well, it's an agreement instead of a contract.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I think that was my
Yeah,
favorite.
it's agreement, I can't say it, but
Then I think there was one that was more recent, correct? In the early 2000s. Yeah, but I think you sent it to me.
I've got some historical documents for it, but I don't know. I don't have enough visibility to say that they're the appropriate documents, where they're the most current or what. It's stuff I kind of collected over the last 5 years.
I'll try to find that sometime through my email, but.
Thank you,
sir.
Leave Mr. Wilmore's up next.
Do you want this or do you want him to have it?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Don't funky yourself.
I know.
I'm not liable for any injuries after you're all's employees. So, you know.
Those workers come from.
Could be. Depends on what you got with. Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me come up and speak today. I think I've got some good things that you're probably gonna like. I've got one concern that we're looking at and trying to get a grant to be able to do something in one of our schools. But I sent you an email out this morning and sent it to Steve forwarded to you all about 6 o'clock. And then since then, we got looking through our budget, looking at some other things that we've had where we've done a lot of improvements. You all have helped us do a lot of these improvements, of course, the last 9.5 years I've been here. The latest improvements, of course, I'm going to show you here in a second that you all paid for last year, of course, was Independence Elementary, the gymnasium floor, which is magnificent. And also the roof on the middle school, you folks were nice enough to pay for. So I'm sorry, I've got a PowerPoint I will send out to you, but I got it late because I was waiting on the drone picture from the ag department. He finally got it to me. So I also got an overall budget if you want to see that. But this is just to start with. This is Independence Elementary floor. That's a solid wood floor. The rec department uses it quite a bit. Our kids really like it there. Of course, we did the freeze floor the year before, and that one had fallen apart. When they did the renovations, they did everything but the gym floor. So we came back and did that 2 years ago with your all's help, and then we did the gym floor at Independence Elementary. Also, the middle school roof, that's a drone shot of the entire middle school and the gymnasium. That's a brand new roof. I think it has a 20-year lifetime warranty on it. So your funding paid for that. Also, we came in about $10,000 under budgets. We used that along with the other money we have for a new welding lab. That is the new welding lab. That's a picture of it there. That is going to be, we've had a couple parts that they had to go get. One they actually had to go to South Dakota and get this week. But this should be, they're going to put the hole in the roof tomorrow. Put the ventilation system is ready. It just has to be attached. And this should be running about the middle of next week. We've had donations, of course, from the EDA. We got donations from Whitfield Community College. And we've raised probably about $170,000 for that lab. And we put about $60,000 of our money into it. So it is really, it's going to be state of the art. It's going to be very nice. So I hope that when we get it finished, you all will come down and take a look at it. And we do plan to open this up in the evenings if WCC will cooperate to allow people to come in and use it. If we can find, that type of system to work out. Above LRE request, and this is what we started out with this morning. And I'll get into this in just a second. This is Fairview Elementary. This is to remove the asbestos in the classrooms. This is also to put new ceiling tiles and lights. That's about $300,000. This is what the classrooms look like. They are from the 1930s all the way up, of course, into the 1950s. This is the oldest school we have besides the middle school. And those lights all hang down. We tried to get a contractor last year to come remove to put in a drop ceiling, and they would not do it. They said that the asbestos had to come out of there. So the good news I've got is if we look through our state renovation money, we had enough renovation money left that we're going to be able to cover the Fairview project. So I don't need you. You can mark that one out. I'm not going to need the money. I'm not requesting any money for Fairview. We think we're going to be able to cover that. And that's because when we did our project with the plumbing, we got $1.25 million. We got enough rebates back on that, and we got enough kickbacks on that because we came in under budget that's going to be able to cover this hole. So I don't need this. So I'm not asking for that. I'll just ask you to kindly mark it off because it's not going to be a request. What we are looking at down the road is one thing. We've gotten some grant money to get weapons detectors for a couple of our schools. Those things are expensive. They're about $18,000 a piece. We've looked at the boxes like the metal detectors, but it's just going to take too long to herd kids through a metal detector. The weapons detectors will be wider, and of course they can detect anything from a vape to a knife to a gun, depends on what you want to turn them to. Most of those are running about $18K. So what we're asking is part of any money you can donate towards safety, we would appreciate it. We don't have a set amount, but anything you think you could throw in there for next year, we would gladly take. Right now, we are putting a new safety system in the high school that will be a double set of doors when you come in. And we're looking at doing that at Fairview also. We've already got this at Freeze. We've got the same type of system set up at Freeze, where you got a double door. Grayson Highlands has a double door, and the middle school has a double door. We've just got to kind of revise it a little bit. So we're also working on our safety as we go. So any assistance you can give towards this, just want to give you an idea of what they cost. The major project we're looking at is Independence Elementary School. We're looking at adding an addition, and you saw the list there from our architect this morning of what he had sent us out to our board. We have 2 outdoor trailers that are awful. One's on the left side. If you look at the school, that's where the library is and special ed. The back side is a classroom. They're both in really poor conditions. There's your 2 trailers. There's the one on the right is the one on the west end of the school. The other one is on the back side. And as much as we put maintenance up there to try to do things, it's just not going to get any better. It's putting lipstick on a pig. It's just going to continue to be bad. And it's also a safety issue too, because you've got people that are outside and they're not inside the building. And that's a concern that we have. This is the library. That's in the trailer on the west end. That of course is in, and there's the floors to the right. You can see we've got a lot of things that are chipped and moved out, and they've been there forever. Renovation cost to IAS, if we just did a new addition with the 7,200 square feet, you're looking at $3 million. That would be 5 classrooms and bathrooms included. If you wanted to add on, one other thing we look at is a cafeteria and kitchen expansion. That would run about $1 million. So roughly you would be looking at $4 million. But our thoughts are if we could just do phase 1 to start with, which would be the addition to get the extra classrooms, we would be more than overjoyed to see if we could try to make that happen with your help. Cost analysis, a new IES addition of 7,300 square feet is about $3 million. Fees are $180,000. Currently, we're guessing CIP roughly looks like around $1.8 million that we've got in there somewhere close. The grant request from the state, I can get 30% or we can get 30% of the project. So if you're looking at a $3 million, we can pick up about $900,000. Now that's free money. We don't have to pay that back. That would be a one-time gift to us. The total would be about 2.7 to 3.2 million that's needed. We kindly asked the county to cover 300,000 above LRE to cover this cost if they feel that they have the money to do so. As an alternative to make us get under budget, then we could reduce the square footage. I talked to the architect about that today. He would probably cut a classroom or cut one of the additional rooms, but we could cut that down. For example, you could go to 6,000 square feet and the cost would be 2.5 million. But keep in mind, 30% is what they'll give you whatever project you're asking. So if you're asking for 4 million, you get 1.2. If you're asking for 3 million, of course, you get 900,000. So that would be the only difference in the money of what we would receive. In closing, I will say this is our best chance to get this funding for right now. We've got really good help at DOE right now. We've got friends in Richmond right now that are focused on rural schools and being able to help school divisions that are in bad condition, and like what IES is. And I got a buddy who used to be on the school board when I was in Craig County. He had to say that timing is everything. And I think the timing for us to apply for this and maybe actually get this grant would be this year. I don't know if we'll get it after this year. It depends on what happens with, how politics goes. But I think this year we would have a decent chance to be able to pick this grant money up. There's no guarantee we'll get 900,000. We may get 500,000. I can't promise you that. But I know what I'm going to ask for, and I know that I feel pretty confident we would have a chance to get something. I feel that things politically in the state could swing the next year, and if they do, I have a feeling that the urban areas will probably get more money than us poor country folks. So I do like the chances this year of applying for this. We're willing to work with the county to reduce the number of square footage if we had to. That would be fine also. But, I've got to take it to my board here. I've talked to all my board members today, and I would be glad to come back to your board meeting that you've got coming up. But the bottom line is, if you want to proceed with this, you want us to go through with this, we would have to have, just like we had something, Mike, you signed a document for us a couple of years ago in 2021, kind of the same thing on a grant where the county is willing to work with the schools. And we'd have to have that into them. That's when the grant is due by the 18th. So, we would like to see if we could work with you guys if possible. If you think you could be able to work with us on trying to get that grant available and trying to get this money, I think we could do it where it's not going to cost you guys hardly anything is what our goal is.
Your grant request is due by April 18th. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir, it is. Yeah. And we will need to know by then, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to do the cafeteria too, do 4 million, do 3 million? Do you want me to drop it down to 2.5 million? What do you want to do? But like I said, it's going to depend on how big of an, we're gonna need at least 4 classrooms. So
Do you have an actual architectural drawing and bids on what it would cost?
did not done any
We've
bids.
done, it seemed like we do this in the county, we say it's $3 to $4 million and ends up being 6 to 8.
Right.
That's my biggest concern.
Sure.
I know IAS needs a lot of work done.
Yeah.
to it.
Sure. What he's done so far is, he has done a preliminary drawing of the 7,200 square feet. I could bring him to your county meeting, which would be the our architects. And, I'll see if he's got a presentation. For us to do this, it's got to be basically shovel ready. So he would have to, he's already proceeded with part of this. He would have to come forward with the rest. We're basing this on about $430 a square foot. Most of the projects right now are coming in at about $380. But, we're putting $50 a square foot because we don't know what's going to happen here in the next, several months as far as, and once we start this, we have to have it completed in 6 months. You have to have it shovel ready, ready to go. We've not done an RFP because, we're not gonna be able to do this unless we've got you guys on board. So we're not going to waste our time. If we think you guys are on board, then of course, we would have you involved in the RFP. We'd make sure Steve would get a copy of everything. But, right now, this is just kind of the preliminary talk of what we want to do. Zeke, you're in deep thought.
Well, I know you're creating a sense of urgency with the political landscape, with the April 18th date. What if we roll the dice another year?
Well, I mean, you could, and this grant, we hope would be available in another year. But right now it is available for this year. And like I said, we've got some pretty good connections at DOE right now who came and visited our school. And I made sure they saw all these areas. I wanted them to be aware of what we're dealing with. And they said, yes, absolutely, you do. We could see where you would qualify for some renovation money. So, once again, timing is everything. I don't know what the elections are going to do next year. And I'm afraid if, some of the elections don't turn out in certain ways, it seems like the urban areas will get more favoritism in sometimes. Not saying they don't need things too, but.
I think there could be a positive too, because the 1 cent sales tax, I think regardless who wins the governor's race, may sign that in next year.
Yeah.
And if we got that, we would be,
Yeah.
the school system would be good to go on store schedule.
Sure.
Because I think I heard the number, we'd be getting around $900,000 a year.
That's
It would
correct.
be-
Yeah, but here's.
But there's a lot of,
Okay,
it's a lot of.
if I wanted to Powerball this weekend, I wouldn't be here. So there you go. Yeah,
Well,
so,
see, when you're-
bird in the hand, has always been my philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, and now the other thing, of course, on that is you still got to have the voters vote, to approve that.
Yeah.
So that's the other part. We in Grayson, we don't like to raise our taxes, as you all know. So,
Right.
I don't know if we'll get 51% of that vote to make that happen. So that's the part that worries me.
You're as good a guy to lead the campaign as anybody.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, go let them burn my house down. Good job. But I think that with this, with the money we've already put in the CIP, we put it in there for a reason. We put it in there for something we're going to need. And right now, the school that needs the most work, we've used COVID money to do the Cates Center. We've used COVID money to do the high school, the middle school. We're going to finish Fairview. We still got to do plumbing in Fairview, but that's it. We've done all new plumbing for the 3 schools down here. Grayson Highlands is in great shape. We won't get into that subject. Freeze is in great shape. For the most part, we've had to put a roof on part of it. We had to put a gym floor in. But we've got some work, of course, because of with the hurricane. We've still got some work we got to do at Freeze outside. But for the most part, our schools have come a long way, and it's thanks to you all. We can show where our money has been spent well. Our taxpayer money has gone where it's supposed to go. And, our schools look great. To be as old as they are, they're in great shape. But IES needs some work, and we need to get these kids out of those trailers. No kid in Grayson County should be sitting in one of those trailers. I'm sorry.
With the trailers, in regard to the trailers, were they further damaged by Helene, and can you use that in your grant application now?
No, we'll just, we want to be honest with them. They're just old, married, and
Right,
they're old as sin. And in the wintertime, the electric bills on them are insane. And if you remember, we had 6 of them down here that we got rid of, and that's when we built the annex. And, those were costing us a fortune. These are not good. They're not safe. I mean, it's just, they're not, a new addition on that building is what we need, among all things that we really cut this down. We've got one more roof to do, which we've got federal money we've already paid for to do. Finish the Cade Center. You all did half of it. We're going to do the outlayers. And then we've got to do the roof at the high school sometime in the next 2 years, and those are shingles. So we feel pretty good about that. Everything else has had new roofs. I mean, everything, auditorium, everything through is all been put under roof. So, you know, we're in good shape right now, except for IES is in the worst condition. Fairview's plumbing needs to be addressed, but that's going to be another grant for the future, which hopefully we win this. You know, we get this, maybe we can address it together with it. But you know, that's the biggest concern we've got right now is IES.
4 to 5 classrooms, and how many bathrooms?
2. 1 boys and 1 girls.
One boy.
Yeah, we got to be politically correct. Yes, ma'am.
Kelly, I'd like to say that our kids deserve better than going out of the elementary building out in the weather. There's nothing to cover the kids up. So if it's pouring the snow or the rain, they gotta go out. Our kids deserve better than that.
Somebody got anything else?
I agree that with you on the need, I see that, and, you know, the expansion of, I'm just not sure about the timing from what I can see on
Well,
our end.
if you want us to get this free money and pull this grant, the timing would probably be this year. That'd be the comment I'd tell you. Now, down the road, you guys may be right. We may get this, and it may pass in Grayson County, but it may not. They tried to pass one in Lee County, and it got shot down by 75%. So, you know, there you go. I don't know. I mean, we're lucky. We have a lot of support for our school system in this county. We do, but I don't know if it'll pass. You know, it's right now. This is the best chance I think we have to pull this off.
Well, and I would say if something like that were to get shot down in Grayson County, that'd be the people saying, you know, speaking. It wouldn't be us 5 making that decision.
I know that.
You know,
I know that.
But anyway, I appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. I just think that, you know, we can get our hands on free money to do this. This is your chance to make it happen. Question, Mayor? Anything?
You did say that you're going to let us see those architect plans.
Yes, ma'am. I'll get a hold of him when I leave here, and I'll see if he's got his preliminary. He had to do a preliminary drawing for us to apply for this grant. So yes, ma'am, I will. But like I said, we can drop this down to a smaller size. So we could go to 6,000 feet or 5,000 square feet. Between what we have in the CIP along with the grant, that would cover all the costs.
So what you need from this board by the 18th of April is the same letter that Mr. Hash signed a couple of years ago that we're committed to working with the school.
That's correct.
To do something.
That's correct. But I would also put a stipulation in there for you all and us that, you know, it would be dependent on if they're going to give us what percentage of the money, you know, because if they're going to give us 10%, that ain't really going to help us a lot. So, you know, that's just what I think we need to cover both of us and protect both of us. I think we need to have some kind of stipulation in there. You know, we're expecting 30%. We're hoping 30%. But, you know, like I said, I see politically right now, because DOE folks have been here and seen this, I really feel we've got friends at DOE right now, and that whole landscape could change at the end of this year. So I think we have an opportunity to get this grant. I mean, all we're doing is rolling the dice. I mean, we get the grant, great. We may be able to reduce the size enough that we could cover all of it, and it wouldn't cost you guys a dime or us. It's just a thought. But those trailers are not going to get any better. They're going to continue to rot, and they're going to continue to get worse.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Where you going? They say thanks to this and last. Where you going?
I just want to know if somebody was to rob a
does
bank
that.
right now, what would we do?
I don't know. I think
Man.
See, see,
That would be in town.
see,
See you, Fred. Good to see you, buddy.
see, Mary.
Bye, Fred.
See y'all.
Thanks. Still live.
Yeah.
It happens. This was like.
Is that lipstick on pig? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're the only one to pull that off.
But this
Appreciate
is the
it.
first
Thank
time
you.
it's happened.
Don't forget your carrot and your stick.
Usually happens.
I got everything. Don't worry. Answer your phone on your dog, too.
That's something we got.
Sorry, that baby did.
The computer loaded.
Oh,
So like
you do
that's
realize that baby's gonna go to IES, right?
I don't know.
You're gonna retire sometime, I hope.
You'll be calling whining about the trailer.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah, still live, by the way. This is non-stop live stream.
Hey, Chris.
It usually takes 2 minutes. I hold it for
What?
one and I lay down.
It's still on.
Don't lie, you're spoiling that shine.
Oh, I am.
I love it. It's okay.
My daughter might be listening.
Tell
Follow
her
her
you hold me all
orders.
the time.
She gives me all these strict instructions. I'm wondering how she made it. You're here, aren't you?
I raised you.
I've got the statistics down. I change about 8 diapers a week and make about 8 bottles a week.
That's pretty good.
Cause he does 4 on the 2 days I've
You
got.
know what you're gonna ask for? You know what you're gonna ask for yet?
That's funny.
And it's usually in the mornings when I do that.
You could rest the tape.
You got it down to something.
You know, I got to
But you
thinking,
know what?
that'll Grayson gonna ship for free dress.
And when I keep him for this 8
Because
hours,
their
it wears
primary,
me out more than 12 and a half hours.
their primary response is a lot of Carroll County.
I guess cause I'm just, he's got my.
You gonna stay for this one too?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I didn't know if you were like school board member or, you know, sheriff's office.
Now I'm laser focused.
Yeah, that kind of got me thinking.
I was torn for
I
a
got
minute.
him a fishing pole for all of that.
But wasn't it something like 30% of the cost?
He goes 5 things.
We're asking for 1.5.
Richard. Sheriff's Department was not one of the agencies for emergency services that he talked about. That's just for volunteer agencies. Alan has put in a request for a generator fee.
Yeah,
Just wanted
our
to make
building-
sure you
our
understand.
building has its own budget. It does,
I know it does.
thank God.
When did that start? Cause I like, oh, it's,
That was before my time.
yeah.
I don't know. No. It was way before.
We're still.
That's where else campaign going.
Go. Busy. Oh, right here it is. I'll forward this.
Yeah, dude.
Mhm.
Look. Yeah. Chairman.
Yeah, Tom.
Like,
Yeah, that's right.
so that's the latest agreement. That would have happened.
That was in 2009.
All right, back in order. Sheriff Vaughn?
Yes, sir.
I feel good going after Mr. Wilmore since it's $20-some million, and I'm only asking for 1.5, so that's good. Good back order. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our budget. I think it is important to keep these lines of communication open. I'm blessed to have with me today, y'all probably all know our command staff, but Chief Deputy Gary Hash, our Captain Todd Perkins, and our office manager, the one that holds us all together, Karen Smith, and then our Lieutenant of Patrol, Jody Full back there in the back. We're blessed to have them. I know they don't look like it, but between all of us, we got about 125 years of experience, so we have a good group. GCSO is the only department that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. We're also the only county department that's authorized by law to lay hands on people to take them into custody. We've experienced officer-involved shootings. Just last week, Carroll County deputies were shot, 2 of them, apprehending a murder suspect. And our deputies know this anytime they're out in the field. Given the nature of the work, this opens us up to a huge amount of civil liability, things like pursuits, use of force. Vicarious liability attaches to the sheriff's office supervisors. If they don't act, they attach to the sheriff, and they also attach to the county. I recently went to a lawful employment class taught by attorney Randy Means, and he talked about the importance of law enforcement agencies and civil liability. He gave us an example of a suit that they just settled. It was an officer talking on a cell phone, going down the street, rear-ended a lady sitting in a traffic light. Thought, well, no big deal. Come to find out the lady was pregnant. So they got to looking into that, and it even got worse. She'd been taking fertility pills for 10 years trying to get pregnant. And then they told her that she could not ever get pregnant again. So they had to write a check for $10 million to settle that lawsuit. And they were glad to get out of it at $10 million. So the things that we do every day that we take for granted, if you're wearing a uniform, a gun, and a badge, you open yourselves up to a huge amount of liability. And this is one reason that I don't want to skip on personnel. I want to hire the best and the brightest people we can get. I want to pay them well, and I want to retain them. The liability to the county is just too great. Because of this heightened liability risk, one of our goals is to become fully accredited for the first time this year. In fact, our auditors are supposed to be here this month, April the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Captain Perkins has done a tremendous job getting us ready for this audit, and we're hopeful to get over the hump and get that. That will allow us to qualify for additional grants. And it will be a huge liability cushion for the county. Oftentimes, and you may get calls too from people out of state, but a lot of times they call me if it's a potential resident looking to move into the county. They'll be asking about Baywood or Troutdale or Freeze, where they're going to move. And what do you think the first question they ask is this a safe community? And I tell them it is a safe community, but we are also seeking the certification of a certified crime prevention community, and we should be able to complete that by the end of this year too. And that'll be a sign that we put coming into the county. Grayson County Sheriff's Office accredited. This is a certified crime prevention community. I know Galax has been for some time, and I think that's attractive for the people that's looking to move into the county. So that's some of the goals that we're looking at completing this year.
Sheriff, can I ask you a question while you're on that topic?
Sure.
How long have you been working on the accreditation process?
It's been couple years? About 2 years.
And what's the benefit, overall benefit?
Just like I said, the liability benefit for the county. The compensation board does offer a salary incentive for the chiefs and sheriffs that pursue and get this accreditation, just because it does help the Division of Risk Management and saves the state money in the long run. I think each of you should have a booklet, that very first page there. The golden rule, that's our mission statement. Luke 6:31, do unto others as you have them do unto you. I really think if you do that, we don't need so much use of force training, and we don't need so much cultural diversity training. If you just live by the golden rule and you do what's expected, and this command staff right here has created that culture, and that's how our guys operate. That's why, the civil liability, I'm blessed. I've been sued one time. This is my 31st year in law enforcement. I got sued one time in Wythe County as a frivolous lawsuit. I got through it out in about 5 minutes. So I've been blessed, and that's the rule that we go by. On the next page, it's our goals and objectives. The Grayson County Sheriff's Office exists for the purposes of safeguarding life, liberty, property, and maintaining civil order. In order to serve these purposes, the Sheriff's Office will appoint the necessary personnel to provide for the enforcement of the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the County of Grayson. Through its appointed personnel, the Office of Sheriff will provide uniform patrols, investigations of motor vehicle accidents, criminal investigations, civil process, and court security, and services to provide the protection of life, liberty, and property as needed by the citizens of Grayson County. The Office of Sheriffs and its appointees will at all times endeavor to provide these services in a courteous, professional manner that will preserve public confidence in our democratic process. If you'll flip over to the next tab, we've included a copy of the annual report. Don't worry, don't panic. I'm not going to go over this entire annual report. But there's some good information in here about the number of calls that we answer. You know, Grayson County's a huge county. Mike knows that probably better than anybody in here after working at the sheriff's office. 450 square miles. If you're in Fairview and you have to go to White Top, you're looking at an hour and 20, an hour and 30 minutes, and that's hard to do with just two personnel. Our arrests continue to increase. Our service calls, even though they were down a little bit this year, historically, those continue to go up. Emergency protective orders, TDOs. Mr. Anderson well knows we have a lot of mental health cases here in Grayson County. That's one of the most time-consuming things that we deal with, is having to do emergency custody orders, temporary detention orders, then oftentimes have to transport them to the other end of the state. We'll skip through some of this. I think, Mr. Boyer, you're looking for our organizational chart. It's on the last page yet, right there. So that's included for your leisure reading. If you move over to the next tab, it's the law enforcement staffing study and strategic planning overview. Should be a tab there for it. This board requested me to hire a firm to do a study back in 2022. We hired Mr. Rick Arrington, a consultant with Crime Prevention Center. Very good report he put together here. He came in, he surveyed citizens, he talked to our staff, he looked at the population, the number of calls, and I think this thing is 50-some pages. So it's some very good information in here. I will draw your attention to page 50, where he summarizes some of the findings. Currently, we have 14 officers in Uniform Patrol Division. Of course, that includes our Patrol Lieutenant Jody Poole, who does mostly administrative work. But his recommendation that we hire an additional 5 deputy positions to be able to adequately cover the county. And when I say adequately cover the county, I want our deputies to have at least 4 hours a day of unencumbered time that they're not serving warrants or answering calls, time to get out here and look for those drug dealers, to be proactive, to do the patrols and interact with the community. And currently that's just not happening. I'm not asking for any additional positions this year. This board granted us 1 extra position after this study was presented. We appreciate that. And that actually got us from 13 to 14. And if everybody shows up, nobody's on vacation, nobody gets sick, nobody gets injured, then we're in pretty good shape in patrol. But you've probably heard the military's 10% rule. You're basically always down 10% of your workforce, and that's probably true up at the factory as well. You're gonna have some people out. It don't sound like a big deal, but if you've only got 3 working night shift patrol and you have 1 call in sick, then you have 2, and you're down in freeze on a domestic, you get a B&E in progress on the other end of the county. And we do have MOUs with our neighboring jurisdictions, and we oftentimes contact the state police, but they are so short right now that they stay basically on the interstate. And it takes about a 30-minute response. They're 350 troopers short right now, so we very seldom have a trooper here patrolling in the county. Behind the next tab, I thought that was a green tab because that's where the money starts on the spreadsheet for our budget. I know we had an unfavorable budget variance last year of about 3%, and according to the budget to actual that Ms. Edwards provided to me, we had spent $3,589,000. So this year we have cut out 2 part-time positions through attrition, and we have increased our revenues with a VSTOP grant, domestic violence grant. So we're asking for the $3,446,109 there. It's the last column, requested FY26. There's explanations out to the right to some of those increases, as Ms. Edwards has already talked about, the 3% salary increase. I don't think the 1.5 bonus is actually in this Is it, you were gonna do that
It's
separate?
not yours, it's in mine.
Okay, gotcha. Dispatchers are getting it's gonna come out to be about a 9% raise this year, which is long overdue. They are way underpaid. So with the 3% raises and that 6% raise, if you go on down the list past the raises, I had spoken to Ms. Edwards and Mr. Boyer last year about considering to pay for the 1.85 enhanced multiplier for our VRS. Currently, our guys receive it's 1.70, right, for the multiplier. I get the 1.85. The sheriffs get the enhanced multiplier. Our regional jail officers, they are technically Grayson County employees because it is a board authority. They get the 1.85. I think Carroll gets it. I know Wythe gets it, about all of our surrounding jurisdictions. I think Ms. Edwards talked to VRS and the estimate on that was about $50,000. So I'd like for you to consider that. Our professional services, that next line down, Power DMS, that is almost a necessity to be able to do the accreditation. That allows the auditors to access our servers and look at that information before they ever get here. In addition, it also has our policy manual on it. A deputy can be driving down the road, going to a call. He may not know exactly what to do. He's got access to our complete policy manual there. When Captain Perkins, when he updates our policy, we can push notifications out to all the deputies. They have to click on it. They have to read that policy, and then they have to click a button saying, yes, I have read that policy. And it even does facial recognition. So if we ever do get in a lawsuit and that deputy is on the stand, we can say, hey, he has read this policy. And that increased, I think, about $22,000 on our professional services line items. I know there was an increase in the grant match. I don't know all the details on that, but I think it's something that Karen and Ms. Edwards had discussed. That's about $82,000 difference. Let's see. The next page just gives you a basic breakdown of our revenues. 1.3 million from the compensation board. We're asking for 1.5 from the county. We did have a reduction in our revenue for grant positions this year. We were fortunate. We kept SRO grants for the Independence Middle School and the Kate Center for 5 years. That was a year beyond what we were supposed to have. They were supposed to be for 4. They had extra money, so they went ahead and funded those for 5 years. We've got a plan in place. We've got another part-time deputy that's going to retire at the end of the year. So we're going to move one of the school resource officers that's at the high school to the other school. That'll still leave us 2 there. They'll leave us 1 at the middle school, 1 at the Kate Center. It's so spread out. You have so many students there with the vapes and the cell phones and the home visits. It's just about daily that the assistant principal has to go out and do a home visit, and they like for the officer to go with them. So it really works good to have 2 there, but that will reduce us by one position there. Telecommunications is on the next page. I mean, this is an expensive business. Live scan fingerprinting, our Southern software contract. You can look down through all of that, and it is all a necessity. And Karen's probably mad at me because I've had her to go back through 3 or 4 different times and say, hey, is there anything else? Is there anything else that we can cut? And this is down to the bare bones. After that, in that same tab, there is a description of all of our line items. I won't go over any of that right now, but it is a good description that describes everything that we do. Education and training, for instance, our guys are mandated by law to have 40 hours of in-service training every 2 years. Our academy is in Bristol, so they have to drive to academy, or we have to pay for specialized training. A lot of times we have to stay overnight when they do that. And if we have an opening and we have to hire a new deputy and send them to the academy and they have to stay down there for 20 weeks, just the meals cost $4,000. And we've got barracks down there though where we can put them up, but it is expensive. Let's see.
Richard, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
The school just proposed buying the metal detectors. How, if the board decides to take action on that, how will that affect the school district?
I don't know if a school resource officer would be required to man it. Could it be manned by school personnel? And then if they do have an indicated positive result, then the resource officer comes up. I like the weapons detector better than the metal detector because if they got keys or something in their pockets, it's not going to be going off all the time. But just like going to a professional sporting event, you know, they've got the weapons detectors, you just walk right through and it'll only pick up large items like a knife or a gun. Something like that would probably be a lot lower maintenance, but that's a good question. You know, somebody's going to have to man them things, and I know we'll narrow it down just to one point of entry, which will help a lot. But something we need to consider because the resource officer, he probably couldn't handle all of it. Yep. Let's see, the next tab was the budget worksheet that just showed last year, and I think I had highlighted the last page, is that right, Nikki? Is that what we actually spent last year was 3.589?
No, that was your actual budget appropriation.
Okay.
The actual spent was 3.466.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then that very last section there, I just included you a peer-reviewed article on the reviewing the high-risk critical areas for reducing law enforcement liability, because it is a major concern, and that is one of my primary job functions is to make sure our policy manuals are up to date and you know, being accredited, that is a living, breathing document. It's not something you just put on the shelf and it gets dusty. It's something that Captain Perkins will be in every day and updating. And Mr. Cornett well knows how many new laws are passed every year in the General Assembly. Usually 75 to 100 of those laws are directly for law enforcement. So we have to go through and update all of our policy manual for all of those new laws. So it is a lot of work. I'm sure we'll all be proud of that accomplishment when we can get accredited. So.
Question. You
Yes.
mentioned the variance, last year in your budget.
Uh-huh.
Are you talking about 2023 or are you talking about fiscal year 24?
The budget that
The one
just
he
did it.
highlighted was 24.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I was looking at this thing here. So, so how much exactly were you over budget?
According to the auditors, Ms. Edwards is $125,000.
And is that,
It does look like a road.
does Virginia code prohibit you from going over budget?
No, the budget is an estimate. The budget is a plan. If you've got a $3.5 million budget, you're going to try to sit back and throw a dot and come in perfectly. You know, that's going to be a miracle. And I've talked to other county administrators, most of them have a 3% tolerance or acceptance on their budget tolerance. I know that's an unfavorable budget tolerance, and we don't want to do that every year. But like that fiscal year, we thought we were going to get the VSTOP grant January the 1st. There was a delay in getting that grant, so we did not get it until July 1. So that was a reduction of $50,000 in revenue. And then we had several items, like I know fuel was over, vehicle maintenance was over by $40-some thousand. Professional services was over. And I think there was even some, like in salaries, some of the benefits. Was it FICA? Let me see here. Yeah, I think FICA was over by $13,000, which we really don't have any control over. VRS was over by about $12,000.
FICA also is affected by overtime.
Overtime, okay,
All
gotcha,
salaries and wages, including overtime.
gotcha,
Just so
gotcha,
you know.
okay.
So,
And fuel was over 94,000, ammunition was a little over. Uniforms, equipment, and purchase of vehicles, but if we hadn't had a shortfall on that grant and reduced that revenue by 50,000, then you're looking at 75,000. You're looking at about less than a 2% budget variance, which in the accounting world, Most people will be jumping up and down if you add a 2% variance.
I think so. The thing is, though, it looks like, at least with the records that I've been able to see, every year you've had a budget variance.
No, not that I was aware of. Now, keep in mind, Mr. Shepley, the old county administrator, his policy was a 5% budget variance. So I never did even know if we were over by 3 or 4%. Those were just adjusted and fixed. I was not even aware of that.
Wow. Because it's my understanding if there's a variance, it requires amendment to that. Was there amendments?
Well, that's what happens when the board closes out the budget at the end of the year. And normally what I was told, I had nothing to do with it because I didn't even know they did it. But you can take money from care of prisoners, which, you know, the sheriff is responsible. We're on the regional jail board and cover it that way. I mean, that's only happened a few times that I'm aware of. I mean, usually we work real hard to come under budget. Karen comes from the private sector and she's tight. She does a really good job at that.
Because the reason I bring that up, this came up last year, I think it was Steve's first year, and this was brought to our attention, and we were pretty clear, Steve, on this not being allowable. So what procedures were put in place to ensure that this didn't happen? And I might just throw this at, are the other constitutional officers off budget? I threw two questions.
I got you. So we've had multiple discussions about this. I heard the board out there, stay in budget. Everyone needs to stay inside of the budget. I'm not debating what other county administrators. That's not been my experience talking to other county administrators. You could probably speak to that a little bit more. I definitely have had we've had discussions with Karen, Richard, about staying within budget. That's not an option. I'll just tell you from the world that I came from, that was never even a consideration of going outside your budget. And I think you can speak to what she's from Galax and Carroll and other places. So we've had multiple discussions about it. We've been tracking, we've been discussing it about the things they need to do to stay in budget. And I certainly had to speak with Durbin on this to find out what my options are if
That was my next question.
Okay, if a constitutional officer decides to over execute their budget, we haven't had that experience with other constitutional. That's really the question. I haven't had that experience yet, unless I'm unfamiliar with something. And we had challenges with other offices over executing funds.
I think historically, if you look back at the records,
Yeah.
some people have been over budget in other constitutional offices.
There you go.
It's more the exception than the rule. And I will say that there was a lot of things done. There was no visibility for the department heads before I got here to their line items unless they came in and requested it. So that was really important to me when I first came on board, was to push this stuff out to the department heads, because if we're asking them to manage, or the constitutional offices, if we're expecting them to manage it, they gotta be able to see it and know where they stand. So, and I think historically it was kind of fixed in my office without a lot of input from some of the department heads.
Or probably discussion with the board about some of the challenges that are happening.
But every amendment that's been made to the budget has been approved by the board of supervisors.
But I think
Well, without the board, let's be clear, because we've been here 3 years, and we didn't say that there was a variance, or we weren't told that the sheriff's department was over 125,000 or 150, whatever it was. And this has happened every year.
No, it's my 17th budget. I mean,
How many years do you think you've been over 17 years?
2 or 3 that I know of, and probably in the last 2 or 3 years that I'm learning. And she just spoke about the inflation since 2019, 24% inflation. And Mr. Boyer said, I decided to go over my budget. I didn't decide to go over my budget. It was things out of my control, just like this grant that did not come in.
What do you mean I see what you're saying?
That was your words just a minute ago. You said when a constitutional officer decides to go over their budget.
Oh,
I didn't decide to go over. It was out of my control.
So when I'll say it again, I apologize. Whether you decide or not, the ultimate person responsible is the sheriff, right? You're
Exactly.
ultimately responsible.
Exactly.
So, whether you decide or not, well, how the budget was made, it went over, so I didn't,
Right.
I didn't, was trying to say you cut, but you're, you know, hey, we got, well, I'm responsible here, you're responsible there, so I guess that's what I meant. I didn't mean to decide it intentionally.
Okay. So what's the policy moving forward? Does this board have a
Well, I
budget
want to know what the
policy?
state code says.
So in the state code in, chapter 25, I believe it's 15.2 something. It says you cannot over-execute your budget without an amendment. That's it. Now, those have taken place. And I think there's, whether they're done in consent agenda in the past, and I think Nikki's right. I think previously it was trying to level set the budgets based on what people did. And then it came in as a true up, and those.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, started true up.
And close out.
And close out meetings. And I'm not.
And if it, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, when the school board was 1.2 that we had to shore their budget up.
Yeah.
I pulled that out of consent agenda, so I think they've always been in consent agenda. But in talking with Steve on the school, that was a $1.2 million difference.
That was in 21 or.
That was last year. That was last calendar year.
And Zeke, with our grants, like I don't get to finalize our grants until June 30th, which means that mid to end July, that's when our final revenues hit. And you're looking at sometimes this year it'll be like $62,000 that you're not going to see until the end of July.
So what's the variance for this year? Are you expected to be over budget this year?
I don't expect to, because I've already cut.
We cut everything we can cut.
Several things. I know there's some discrepancies in the benefits, like health insurance, but now, in the past, we do an estimate, we send it up to finance, and then they true up those numbers, and then that's what's submitted. So I really can't help if health insurance or FICA or VRS is over. That's sort of fixed cost. I mean, if you got personnel, that's fixed cost.
If I could I'm just a dumb patrol lieutenant, beat cop for 23 years. And I'm just listening to all this, and if you obviously feel like we've been over budget a lot, several years.
It's not a feeling, it's just what I've seen on
So-
paper. It's not a feeling.
Well, to me, that says the budget ain't big enough. I've got a patrol division down there.
Stand up. Tell him.
Tell him. I have a patrol division, and my job is to keep my finger on their pulse. And the pulse down there right now is, I've heard multiple guys say, we've been defunded. The police have literally been defunded in Grayson County, which was a fear-mongering propaganda that went around in one of the worst regimes that we've ever seen in this nation, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
Never would have happened, didn't think it would ever happen, but that's how they feel. And being in law enforcement for 23 years almost now, that's the best bunch of men that I have ever worked with. They arrest more people than I worked at Galax for 16 years, and we thumped people when they needed thumping, and we arrested people when they needed arresting. And these guys are hands down the best bunch of guys that I've ever seen. They're training on their own time right now because I've told them, man, there ain't no overtime.
We can't afford
There's
it.
no
I
overtime.
can't send them to training. I'm having to tell them
I
no.
just had a 15-year-old deputy come to me and show me pictures of a hotel room that he had to stay in training the other day that was literally a roach motel.
Yes.
Honest to God, there
That's all
were
we can
roaches on the
afford,
wall.
'cause we've been
There
cut
were
back.
burns in the bed. There was black mold in the roof because we can't afford to send. They had a week of that. This guy went to the dollar store and bought his own sheets. So if we are popping our budget every now and then, I'm not a numbers guy by no means. I'm not. Like I said before, I'm a dumb beat cop. It just sounds to me like the budget just ain't big enough because I expect them to cover 450 square miles, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I mean, I want them checking businesses. I want them checking residences. I want them out and moving. That's a lot of miles because we're screwed in this county, excuse my language, because of the river and the mountains. So you can't go from point A to point B without going one direction.
Well,
And
let me
yeah.
just say, look, we don't question your job and your profession.
I just don't want
You
to talk
guys are
about
doing
it.
great. But this, we're talking about how the money's spent. You're here saying, our budget's not big enough.
It's not.
Well, let's do a
I
better
mean,
job managing the budget we have is what
I think they do.
Well,
There's stuff we
you're not
need
seeing
that we
what-
can't get.
$10,000 in ammunition.
Yeah.
$10,000.
Probably need to spend another 10,000 to be honest.
10,000.
Because we got guys buying their
That
own
was ordered
ammunition.
during COVID and it never came in during that fiscal year and it came in the next year. You're talking
And
about.
the year after that, and the year after
You're
that.
talking about $4,000 there.
$4,000.
Look at it current. Look at current.
There is gonna be an amendment in your board packet next week. And it includes refunded expenditures, some grant funds that are coming in, and some, insurance recoveries from vehicle accidents. It'll be in the consent agenda. The following month, we're gonna have a budget adjustment on the benefits for the sheriff's department, because like I said, they don't budget those. That's on me. So, our open enrollment year occurs in October. So right now, we're budgeting for next year, and I won't know what our rates are until October. Well, no, I'll probably know sometime in like August, September. But, and then the elections that people make also change that number. So there's a lot of variables that go into those numbers. Now, that's why I put, there's money in the budget for those adjustments, because I can't basically guarantee that the number's gonna hold. So I have about a 10% for health insurance that I can adjust the departments. And that's gonna be in your May.
So this amendment was the policy of the previous leadership here, and they include this in the consent agenda. So these years, what you said there was other constitutional offices that have been over, but was it as prevalent as the sheriff's department?
I think that sometimes they got fixed and sometimes they didn't, honestly. And I mean, because you're talking about, hold on. Now this is front back, right? So you're talking about every department in this budget.
Well, I'm
So-
talking about constitutional
Okay,
offices as well.
if you just,
I said
okay,
constitutional
all right.
There's
So
no
it's,
comparison between my budget and the other.
Well, I
I
get
would
that.
say he probably has the most fluid.
I get that. I get that you have a larger budget, greater responsibility as far as the safety of the citizens. But we rely on the information that these folks give us, because we can't come down there and, talk to you every day.
You stop down anytime you
and
want
do
to. My
that.
door's
Well,
always
if you
open.
want
I
to.
can't monitor your
I
budget
haven't seen you in a
every
good
week.
while.
Right, I can't monitor your budget. So we rely on their information. We got new folks in here, and you're telling us that the old folks just put that in the budget amendment
and fix.
and passed it through, didn't explain it to the board members. That's where I'm coming from.
They explained it to the board because they had to know about it during the closeout.
But they didn't explain
They
it
didn't
to us.
explain it.
Okay, Sheriff,
I don't think.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you actually have your physical budget sitting in your office and you check it and compare it to what your month actual?
Karen tracks it on Microsoft Money and she does get a budget to actual from Nikki and she does compare
You
that.
do have access to the numbers?
Yes.
I do now, first time ever,
Okay.
first time ever.
Did you have them last year?
Not until she gave them to me.
I think
We pushed it out there.
we're gonna move on. We're not gonna.
We
go
did not
line
have
item
them.
by item, but I mean, we have to make some changes in this county if we're gonna put that kind of pressure on our constitutional officers who likely aren't accountants to be within 3% of the budget, and we've been so lackadaisical for the past 20 years here. If it's this board's policy that we need to tighten it up and be more responsible, then we need to say that, and we need to be able to provide a plan on how that's gonna be done.
Well, I think we were pretty clear last year when we told Steve we needed to tighten these things up. It wasn't just sheriff's office, but it was other things. But do we need to make that into a resolution, or what do you suggest?
Well,
It's being done right now.
Was this the accounting software that you're able to look at now? Is this something that you all got on your own, or is
No,
this
no, no,
something-
No, it's our software.
It's Edmund.
So you can share it.
Yeah. I finally can get in there and look and see, and if I have questions, I just call Sheila and say, tell me, I don't recognize this charge in our line, tell me what it is. I talk to Nikki a lot, probably more than any other department. I talk to her a lot. Cause we take pride in what we do, and we don't just go out to just say, here, we'll just buy everything the guys need. We can't do that. I work diligently to write grants to get the guys what they need. I wrote 3 this week. I finalized 9 this week to get reimbursements. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I could stop going after grants, but then the guys would have absolutely nothing. Okay, you give us a line item for uniforms. There's no line item for bulletproof vest. There's no line item for radios. No line item for half the stuff that they need on the road.
Yeah, to speak about the operational budget, last year, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the only thing that I remember cutting out was the cars, and then we funded those with ARPA, correct? Was that right?
200,000 on that.
Was it 5 cars?
6.
Six.
That was a big help. Absolutely. That'll get us through
But,
hopefully the
what-
next couple of
You know,
years.
speaking to what Jody was saying, I was not,
I'll clarify what I was saying with their feeling of being defunded. I've heard those words, actually. What they're talking about is when they come to me and they say, hey, we want to do some really needed training, not going away, not going out of the county and staying in hotels. We want to go to a school and we want to do this certain type of training. This is an example. And I have to look at them and say, we can't pay you because we don't have the money. And I can't let you take comp time that often because the policy says we got to pay you back comp time at time and a half. And I got to have you because just like this evening, I had a sergeant call in sick tonight. And that's, everybody deals with that. I know that's not what I'm saying. But then they say, well, why can't you? Where's the money? Well, our budget has been, we have to make sure that which that's why I say the budget's not big enough, because patrol costs a lot. I mean, I know it costs a lot of money, and that's a very good point. There's no line item for the things that we really need. I mean, these things that happen in Carroll and that happened in Smith County here a while back, they're real close to us now. With has had an officer shot, Smith. We've had an officer shot in this county not too long ago. And when I came to patrol, I had some visions on some things that I wanted each one of my guys to have. I don't particularly want a SWAT team, but I want them all to be SWAT trained and have the tools to do that job. That way you always have a tactically trained officer on the road. But I know I'm kind of getting off, but those are the things I'm talking about. Well, why can't we go train this weekend? Well, because you're gonna have to do it for free, and I can't legally ask them to do it for free. And that takes ammunition. So she's looked at a grant to get some simunition. That's way more expensive than regular ammo. But it's for force on force. And if we can't get it on a grant, there ain't no way our budget would ever get it. There's no way. But there are things in patrol. When I was saying that I have them drive this whole county, my point there wasn't to tell you how hard we work. My point there was to tell you tires wear out at a very high rate. Deer get hit at a very high rate. I mean,
Fuel ain't cheap.
Fuel is through the roof. And so these are all things that lead me to believe, just sitting here as a regular Joe, that I don't know exactly what our budget is. I just know that if it's over as often as you see that it is, that tells me that I know this man, and I know he ain't lying, and none of these men are lying. We're not spending money on anything other than what we need to. So that brings me back to it just ain't big enough. It's just not enough money.
Well, let me ask, what's your caseload per investigator?
I'm here for budget presentation. I don't have that information.
I mean,
Well, so I'd like to add something.
Yeah.
Okay, Sheriff, is it all right?
Sure, absolutely. Come on here if you want.
With the things that I've been doing with accreditation, it's accreditation is 192 standards that every professional department in Virginia and across the nation, they have their own things, but that you follow. And it's not 192 things because there's bullet points in each and every one of them. Some of them are as simple as, do you have a mission statement, which we do, and do you follow it and things like that. But it is about other things. Do you have a tactical team? Do they train? Do they do this and that? And with the things that I've been working with accreditation, I know this department inside and out in regards to those 192 things. I ask Karen all the time, and for the past several years, I've been asking her, how are we on budget? Can we do this? Can we do that? Karen keeps up with it. She's the budget Nazi at our department, to be honest with you. And she will say no in a skinny second. So to say that we really thought, and I know Karen thought in the past several years, we're doing okay on the budget. We get close and stuff like that. And if you went over, you'd hear about it. So it is being watched, but we're also doing little things like even with accreditation, we have stood our TAC team down. We're not training. We utilize the state police whenever we need to. And so we are doing things to cut this and pare it down. So it's off. Apparently it was. It's not because we knew it, and it's not because we want it to be off. We are really trying to do the most professional department that we can with what we have. So I just wanted to say that.
no, I appreciate it.
Okay. I got one more question for Mr. Anderson. We gave that presentation on this needs assessment back in 2022. And I said we needed one position, and you said, no, we need to go ahead and give you two or maybe three. And I said, no, let's incrementally do this. I said, let's just do one. So can I ask you what's changed between 22 and now?
When I talked with you, the recommendation was you needed two positions. And I went to bat for you to get those two positions. And then you had talked to board members behind the scenes and said, no, I just need one. So that's what changed, is the fact that you said you needed one, not that I changed. I didn't do this study. And the other thing that's changed is since 21, we have new leadership in here that has pointed out things.
21.
You said 21, 22. What was the year you said?
Mr. Shepley was still here when the study was done.
Well,
Study was done
what
22.
you said when I asked for two deputies, that's what you're talking about. Okay. So what's changed is we have new administration that's not cooking the books behind the scenes and then running it through.
No, I wouldn't say cooking the books.
Wow.
My question was, you were helping us in 2022, and now you've turned against us. I want to know what's changed between 22 and now.
Because in 22 to now, I trusted what you were saying. I trusted the information that was being provided to me. Okay. It turns out that wasn't accurate information from previous people that were here that were signing off on this to rectify your budget at the end of the year. That's what's changed.
Now, if anybody else has questions besides Mr. Anderson, I'll be glad to answer, Mr. Chairman. If not, I'm done.
I do, Sheriff. I'm gonna ask a question second. First thing is, we've got a really hard decision on. We don't have any money in this county, but we've got enough, and we're proud of all of the departments and services that we do have in this county, and we certainly don't want to lose them. I would appreciate it personally, Mr. Poole, if you would help us, because we have not defunded the police.
Right. No,
And
I
that
would
is not
say,
the goal of this
I'd say
board.
you haven't. I would say you were underfunded. That's what I would do.
We just don't have a lot of money. I mean, and that $120,000 that's over, to me, anybody can have $120,000 over on an accident, because you set the budget a year in advance before you ever spend it.
Mhm.
And things just come up.
And
But I will tell you, that's almost a penny on the levy. And we have to look at all of our folks in this county. And when we tell them that we have to go up 2 pennies on the levy, well, we do have to get tight. And I don't want this to feel like a singling out, even though it feels that way. It is tight, and we would appreciate.
By all means, I've explained to them, listen, we're law enforcement officers and we will enforce the law, regardless of what our budget is. We're going to enforce the law. I just wanted you all to know what their thoughts were. I'm speaking for them, and that my low-level understanding of it is that if my allowance is $5 a week, but I need $10 a week, then mom and dad are underfunding me. That's all I'm saying. That's what it feels like.
Unfortunately, in that analogy, we're in a situation where your sister doesn't get any money.
You realize that if it goes there, somebody else has got it. There's only so much of the pie that's going on.
I understand that. I simply wanted to let everybody here understand that's what they feel like. In no way, shape, or form will I ever back them not doing their job or being reactive. We're going to be proactive. We're going to do our job because that's what we said we would do, and that's who we are. And I think that I speak for the whole department when I say that. But I just wanted to let you all know that's how they view it. And I don't go down there and say, yeah, you're right. They're defunded. No, that would be very unprofessional.
I can tell you from my experience starting in 1984, I can remember the day when Carroll County or some other agency would come in there with a box of used uniforms that was sewed up or with green thread. And and that we were all digging through and glad to get what we can get.
Absolutely.
And whether it's, to the congratulations to Karen and for her efforts with grants and whatever.
Absolutely.
Y'all are way more equipped than I could remember. Good cars and equipment, and I want you to, to have it.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's been an effort to try to upgrade and do the best we can. We now sitting on this side of it, trying to figure out where the money comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different thing.
And sometimes mom and daddy didn't even give me the $5. I get it. I just felt like at that point in the conversation, it was a good point to say, maybe the problem is not that we're spending too much. It's that we don't have enough. Not that
nobody has enough.
That's it.
Right.
And I get that. That's part of it.
Well, I wish we could give you 5 more positions if we were able to.
The point I was trying to make was, I think the only thing that I was aware of that we cut from the last year's request was the cars, and we funded with more cars than you requested. Is that not correct?
The cars were great. They came.
Because, I mean, we come in here to about 3 or
Except for
4
the
budget meetings, these guys do the legwork, and we give it,
60 grand.
we have
perfect time.
a few decisions to make.
We appreciate it.
And that's,
Listen,
so I'm just saying it's hard for me to understand that we're defunding.
Well, I want you
Didn't say
guys
words
to
that
know.
they felt that way.
I know, I understand.
And again,
I'm just giving
remember
my
I said
perspective on it.
I would never agree with that. I would never go and say, yeah, guys, let's start a campaign. They're defunding us. That's so
Well,
low level
I
and
appreciate
professional. I
what
would
you
never
guys
do.
do. I do. I know you put your lines online every day. Richard's the same as well. But I hope I answered your question. What
Chairman, I
changed?
have one more thing if I may.
I still have a question.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
What is your actual ask in dollar figures?
It's to maintain 1.3.466.
What's 3? It's on the,
It's actually what Nikki had up there on the,
3.468.
yes.
yeah, that's it.
468. And that's bare bones. If we don't get that, we're gonna have to cut some services somewhere. Okay. Some bare bones.
Supervisor Thompson had a question, and then you can.
I'm just curious, so you have been able to see your budget since,
Just since she came along,
okay, so.
which
last
was
year.
several months in. It
Right,
was,
right.
yeah.
What months could you narrow it down to, like, were there certain months that you saw that were the over budget months, or was it just sporadic? Like, was it
It's
September,
sporadic.
October,
It really
November,
is.
December?
Well, see, with ours, like ours is not a monthly thing. Like the only thing monthly we have is our,
Fuel,
fuel and, their internet expenses and stuff like that,
Full-time payroll.
and the payroll. See, ours, like our professional services, that's straight off the top. Like, they bill us at the beginning of July, and then the remainder of that comes in like February, I think.
so you didn't see an increase in fuel usage and overtime and things like that after the hurricane?
Overtime. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I was getting.
We were supposed to get,
Unforeseen expense.
right, we were supposed to get a reimbursement from FEMA. I'm not sure where that's at. But it was over $1,000 in fuel and over almost $27,000 in overtime.
And we do have a meeting with FEMA on Monday to try to get that speeded up
Yes,
so
we
we can
do.
get it back.
So hopefully we can still recoup that money. I hope. I really do.
Only other thing I had, I know there's gonna be an increase in the casino money. The casino money was designed to be earmarked for public safety, transportation, and education. I've never came to this board and asked for any of that casino money, but maybe we could plug a hole if there is an increase coming to that revenue stream. And like I said, I've been doing this it's my 17th budget. And 2009, 2010, I believe it was 2019, I saw some boards kick the can down the road. And my constituents, your constituents, I don't think they mind at all about a 2 or 3 cent increase. It's those 44% increases and 50% increases that I start hearing that, and you probably start hearing it. And I just, it's a fact of life. If we don't have any other revenue streams, we got to raise it from somewhere. So,
Thanks, Sheriff.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank the rest of y'all for coming to.
Thank you.
y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, that's the last presentation. You got 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got 5 minutes.
Let's go ahead and go into closed session real quick. Is that anything, motion, to go into closed session?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. We're now in closed session. Is there anybody that doesn't need